Sign up for a year and pay less than 71 pesos per month. Visit tmt.ph/premium to get your free 30 days of the Manila Times Premium.
Destilería Limtuaco and Company Incorporated, the oldest distillery in the Philippines. Established in 1852, the company, through 5 generations of master blenders and distillers, has amassed a wide range of distilled spirits and alcoholic beverages, expertly produced with the highest degree of manufacturing excellence. It was in the Philippines' capital city of Manila that Chinese immigrant Lim Tuaco established Destilería Limtuaco during the Spanish colonial period. He brought with him a family secret recipe for a Chinese medicinal wine known to restore vigor and vitality. The product, named Shok Hok Tong, would eventually become a generic name for all Chinese herbal tonics sold commercially. To this day, the product is still made with the same recipe and marketed under other brand names. In 1926, Lim Tuaco's nephew, Lim Chai Seng, took over the helm of the company. Much-needed capital was pumped into distillery, and production shifted from the homebrewed concoction to other Western-type liquors. In 1937, James Limpe, a son of Lim Chai Seng, was placed at the helm of the company. James, a professional manager, introduced modern management into the business and more Western spirits to the Philippines through a distribution partnership with Shenley Distillers Company. James would later develop his own labels with his blending expertise. In 1958, James relinquished his position of Chief Executive Officer to Julius, his eldest son. As he grew in the business, Julius Limpe learned the chemistry of liquor manufacturing and became, like his father, a master blender. Julius developed and patented formulas and aging processes that are today part of the corporation's closely guarded secrets. It was during his time that Destilería Limtuaco and Company Incorporated was established as a leader in the local liquor industry, owing largely to the success of his brainchild, White Castle Whiskey, the #1 whiskey in the Philippines. Julius Limpe says to have dreamt about a red bikini-clad woman atop a white horse galloping along a shoreline, where a white castle was visible in the periphery. Julius turned this dream into an iconic ad campaign for White Castle Whiskey in 1969. He was also credited for commercializing many other brands and innovative drinks during his time. Today, the 5th generation, headed by Olivia Limpe Au, is steering the company into the challenges of the 21st century. Using the wisdom gained from past generations, she is now focused on bringing the company to the world with the company's line of Philippine craft spirits, developed with the finest raw materials the Philippines has to offer, ethically sourced from local farmers, and developed with the accuracy and precision of the most up-to-date fermentation and distillation techniques with the help of our international technical consultants. During her time, the company has been re-engineered into a streamlined organization. The distillery has over 40 different products, which include local blends and foreign brands manufactured locally under license. It has 3 bottling, processing, and aging plants, as well as warehouses in and outside Metro Manila, which constitute the largest stock of aging spirits and oak barrels in the Philippine liquor industry. One of the more prolific exporters of Philippine spirits, Destilería Limtuaco products have also been sent to over 20 countries all over the world. Destilería Limtuaco has come a long way from its humble beginnings to become the quality leader in the Philippine liquor industry, where innovation, quality, and integrity is key to their success and longevity.
Bayang magiliw, kalas na silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hiniran, duyan ka ng pag-ibig, sa manlulungin, di mo pagsisingin, sa lahat at pulis, sa simalas ng langit ko. Nilalaw ko na ang isang paglayang inamahal, ang isang ng pagkakas mo'y kami.
sector should do to bring back what I would call a manufacturing renaissance. So the fourth.
Yes, well, we are really truly grateful for your being our keynote speakers on the Manila Times Online Business Forum. We have titled it Repurposing Industry for Retooling the Economy. So welcome Fita of DTI and George of PCCI.
Yeah. Yes, aside from being thankful for DI and the PI, we're grateful to Distillery Alimtuaco and Company Incorporated for being our special partner, which our forum today won't public supporting us. We also welcome support of our partner organizations, the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Philippines, Davao City Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or DCCCII, the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, the Italian Chambers of the Philippines, or ICCPI, the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP, the Nordic Chamber of Commerce of the Center for Democracy, the She Talks Peace, and of course, our media partner, the Manila Times TV.
Yes, many thanks to Distillery Alimtuaco and to our chamber organization partners for always being supportive for all of our fora. And the Manila Times is grateful also for everyone for viewing and supporting the purpose of our forum for today. Now, Conrad, let's roll out a blueprint for repurposing industry for retooling the economy, starting with our first keynote speaker.
Yeah, let me introduce our first keynote speaker. Okay, our first speaker serves as the board. Wait.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Okay. Our first speaker is a private sector representative in the Industry Development Council and the National Competitive Council. He is the private sector representative to this executive council. He is also one of the 3 representatives to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Business Advisory Council. He is the president of the Integrated of an Interpolymer Corporation. He is also the chairman of the Philippine Exporters Confederation, a board member of the Philippine Business for Education and director of Hospital Foundation. He is a member of the Rotary of Manila. In fact, he has a very familiar name in the industry, and I've heard of him maybe in
So Conrad, our first speaker is Dr. Fita Aldaba, DTI Undersecretary for Competitiveness and Innovation. Undersecretary, the screen is yours. Undersecretary Fita. I think you're still on mute. Just one moment. I think we have to Undersecretary, your microphone is on mute, so you have to unmute.
Oh, okay, okay.
There.
Good morning. Good morning. That's why I was wondering. Nobody was responding. I was asking a question, but a very good morning once again. Thank you for this opportunity to share
Glad to
the
have
Manila
you.
Times event. And good morning as well to my fellow speaker, President of PCCI, Mr. George Barcelon, and to everyone listening. Good morning. So, what I'll be discussing would first to present the current state of our economic recovery, but in particular, I would be focusing on the manufacturing sector. And then I would be presenting some of our proposed measures and strategies, policies to help us return to our growth trajectory, as well as to speed up, of course, our economic recovery. So in here, what you can see are some figures illustrating the performance of the economy. And this is captured by our gross domestic product, covering the years 2018 up to the first quarter of 2022. And as you can see, for 2021, we've already surpassed our GDP, gross domestic product, for 2018. 18.3 trillion pesos in 2018. That was the value of our GDP. And for 2021, it's 18.5 trillion pesos already. And if we look at our performance during the first quarter of 2022, as you can see, we've already registered the highest level, 4.62 trillion as of the first quarter of 2022 versus 4.27 trillion in first quarter 2021 and 4.46 in the first quarter of 2019. So the projections are that we would be able to hit 6% by 2022, 2023, and these are based on the forecasts of the Asian Development Bank. And compare this, if you look at the forecast for our neighboring countries, we're actually the second. Vietnam is 6.7, Malaysia 5.4, Indonesia 5.2, and Thailand 4.5. But we are actually looking at 10% internally. Now, looking at the performance of the manufacturing sector, manufacturing was hardly hit. In fact, it took the hardest hit among the different sectors in the economy. But as you can see, after several contractions, we were able to recover. In 2021, we registered a manufacturing gross value added of 3.55 trillion pesos. And we've already surpassed the 2018 level of 3.48 trillion. Of course, this 3.55 is already about to reach the 3.6 trillion registered in 2019. And if we look at our performance during the first quarter of 2022, we've hit 975 million pesos already. And this is higher than the pre-COVID level of 908 million during the same quarter. So this value, as you can see, after a contraction in the first quarter of 2021, in 2022, also in the first quarter, a 10.1% increase in our growth was registered. So, well, despite the pandemic, if you look at the figures, you can see on the slide, these are our foreign direct investment inflows. There was a reduction in 2019, but during the pandemic, we were able to receive $753.98 million in terms of FDI inflows. Although, of course, this declined as well in 2021 to $550.78 million. But overall, if you look at the cumulative sum from 2016 to 2022, the Philippines was able to bag 4.3 billion US dollars in the manufacturing sector, which actually is the sector that is receiving the highest level of foreign direct investment flows as compared to other sectors in the economy. And in terms of our exports, value registered in 2021 was at 74.7 billion US dollars, and another record high quarter one export value at 19.4 billion US dollars in the first quarter of 2022. Average annual growth rate registered from 2016 to 2021 was at 4.5%. And in terms of our employment, again, as you can see on the slide, our employment currently stands at 3.66 million workers. This is as of April 2022. And this has already surpassed the 2019 level. And we're up from 3.42 million workers in 2021, and as compared to 3.19 million in 2020. Okay. So regarding the state of recovery of the various subsectors under the manufacturing, we tried to comparing the performance of the various sectors during the first quarter of 2019 and the first quarter during 2022. As you can see, we've divided them into four groups. What we call the soaring group, this indicates that the sectors have been growing by over 10%, and this would include products such as food, wood, furniture, paper, and paper products, basic metals, fabricated metal products, chemicals, and pharmaceutical products. And then we also have the growing sector. These are the sectors that posted less than 10% growth during the two periods under review. And this would cover transport, reproduction of recorded media, along with computer, electronic, and optical products. And then the third group, we call them the recovering group. And this is because they've registered a growth of less than the growth that rate. They're still a reduction in terms of, or contraction in terms of their growth. So with less than 10%, and this would cover other non-metallic mineral products, machinery and equipment, wearing apparel, electric equipment, and beverages. And then for the lagging sectors with more than 10% decline, we have coke and refined petroleum, leather, textiles, tobacco, rubber, and plastic products. So given our goal to really facilitate a quick recovery as well as a quick return to our growth trajectory, I would like to discuss still, of course, apart from the recovery that we need to carry out, some of the more fundamental issues being faced by our industries. We all know that our tariffs are already low, and there are three important challenges being faced by our industries. Number one is the intense competition from imports in the domestic market. And then secondly is the need for us to improve the capacity of our domestic industries in order to enable them to penetrate our export markets and global value chains. And at the same time, this is important because of the need for us to be able to take advantage of the increasing returns to scale by going to the export market or serving both the domestic and the export market, as well as to harness the market opportunities arising from the free trade agreements that we've signed. And lastly is the need for us to attract more investments. And based on our experience, of course, we've been liberalizing the manufacturing sector since the 80s. Given the stage of our development, what we've seen is that the gains from trade and competition were not automatic. And that is because there are market failures, there are coordination failures which characterize our economy and our country. And hence, given these characteristics, government really has an important role to play, especially in terms of focusing our efforts towards the implementation of an innovation-centered industrial policy. So before I discuss the innovation-centered industrial policy, let me just define what we mean by innovation. When we say innovation, we are referring to being able to successfully bring a new and improved product or service to the market, which would result in consumer adoption of the technology or the products or services that we are introducing, along with profits for the company. And in contrast, an invention is the process of exploring a hypothesis or prototyping a new idea. Innovation will translate this invention into a solution that is going to be adopted by the market at scale. And if we want, you can also interpret this in terms of an equation. Innovation is actually the product of invention and entrepreneurship. Well, if you're successful, this is really going to result in big profits for the company. And I'd like to define it as well. In economics, innovation is equivalent to creative destruction, meaning while an invention is merely theoretical, innovation is an invention that has been put into practice. So you're trying with with a new product, with an innovation, you will be replacing an old product or a product that used to exist in the past. Like, for example, when the VHS replaced Betamax, for example, and similar other cases. So moving on, this is our inclusive innovation industrial strategy, which I've mentioned is really focusing on an innovation-centered and science and technology-driven industrial policy. So the goal is to grow and develop globally competitive and innovative industries. What we want to create is a dynamic industry ecosystem, focusing on the following. One, we want to embrace Industry 4.0 technologies. We want to develop more innovative MSMEs and startups. We want to integrate our production systems, linking manufacturing with both agriculture and services. We are bridging the gaps as well in our innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem by promoting research commercialization, accelerating the commercialization, the productization of our R&D investments. This is really key. This is very important. And of course, we cannot overemphasize the need for us to upskill and reskill the workforce. Given that we're introducing these new technologies, new activities would emerge, which would require new competencies and new skills, and hence the need for us to continuously upgrade our education curricula and provide new skills training program and improve our digital skills. And lastly, is enabling an economic environment that would allow our manufacturing industries to thrive and develop. And considering the new legislations that have been recently approved by the President, along with our pandemic experience, we have a new industrial policy. And this time we are trying to integrate the first slide, all those ideas that I've presented, along with the other policy measures that are going to be implemented, as well as all the developments happening around us, whether internally or externally, but which are affecting the growth and development of our industry. So in here, you can see three major strategies. Number one is the need for us to accumulate investment, particularly increasing our science, technology, innovation, production capabilities. So we would need to attract more investments towards advanced digital production. For example, we need to invest more in R&D in order for us to pursue more innovation activities, and at the same time, human resource development to enable us to have the necessary new and future skills needed by industries in the coming years. And of course, we also need to invest in terms of improving the capacity of our research community. And then this would, of course, what we expect would be for these measures to improve, to increase our productivity and our production efficiency. And then we have structural transformation. What we want to happen here is for the share of knowledge and science, technology, innovation intensive sectors to increase as a percentage of our GDP. And also, this would involve attracting and adapting more Industry 4.0 technologies, integrating our production systems, and pursuing clean and efficient production. And then you have the third, inclusive innovative industrialization, or what we call the IQS. And this would entail diversifying our exports, as well as deepening our global value chain participation, expanding our domestic market base, transforming our regional economies, and moving our workers from the informal to the formal sector. And you can also see on the slide three major groups of sectors that we are prioritizing. One is the rebuild sectors or the rebuild activities, and this would cover modern basic needs such as food security, agriculture, fishing, agribusiness, health, water, infrastructure, education, shelter, and sanitation. And then you have another priority sector would be the competitive and resilient activities. This would include green ecosystems, defense, security, integrated steel, health and health systems, chemicals, plastic, green metals, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. And for the third group, these are activities to accelerate our digital, our industrial transformation. And so this would include the adoption of advanced manufacturing technologies, high-tech agriculture, biotech, smart manufacturing, blue economy, creative economy, and R&D. So basically, this would represent the sectors that would be included or that are included in our strategic investment priority plan. And carrying all this out would lead us to grow globally competitive and innovative industries that would support our growth, improve our environmental sustainability and quality of life. And ultimately, of course, we need this inclusive innovation industrial strategy in order for us to have shared prosperity for all and alleviate poverty and inequality in the country. So to do all this, we've also we are proposing this 5 measures. Number 1 is aligning the CREATE strategic investment priority plan with our new industrial strategy, which we call IQS, the 2 slides that I've earlier presented, and make the SIPP, the Strategic Investment Priority Plan, a driver for our industrialization and recovery. And let me note that part of the CREATE is, there's a particular section, Section 301, which provides the President power to grant incentives. So this would enable the President to modify the mix, period, manner of availment of incentives, as well as to craft financial support package for highly desirable projects with sustainable development plan and high level of sophistication and innovation. And by this, we interpret this as going beyond the income tax holidays and duty and tax-free importation of capital equipment. This would provide the president the power as well to give or to grant incentives such as fiscal support. As I will provide some examples later. Just to go over quickly these incentives under the CREATE, the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, it is providing up to 7 years, from 4 to 7 years income tax holiday, a 5% special corporate income tax, and enhanced deductions. And these are shown on the right side of the slide. I won't enumerate them anymore, given the time that we have. And then just also to give a glimpse into the more specific incentives under the CREATE for export activities, approved projects could receive from 14 up to 17 years of incentives. And for domestic market activities, they could enjoy the incentives from 9 up to 12 years, depending on the type of activities that they are pursuing, as well as depending on the location. And of course, the farther away you are from NCR, the higher the incentives. And the more high-tech your activity is going to be, again, the higher the incentives. So we look at CREATE SIPP as our major tool for industrialization, because through the SIPP's CREATE, through CREATE's SIPP, we could provide fiscal and non-fiscal support along with a comprehensive package to help our country sustain its growth, industrialize, as well as to create globally competitive and innovative industries. And here, just to give an example, we are crafting this electric vehicle incentive strategy that would provide production support along with consumption subsidy to drivers. In particular, we're focusing on the public utility vehicles. And this particular program is important in order to narrow the cost gap between electric vehicles and the traditional motor vehicles, and at the same time, help us jumpstart the development of EV in the country. And another example would be this program that we are also currently crafting. It's called the Securing Manufacturing Revitalization and Transformation Program that's going to provide fiscal support, fiscal and non-fiscal support to industries that would be adopting Industry 4.0 technologies, as well as engaging in more innovation activities. So in terms of the support that we are proposing, this could cover soft loans, reduced input tariffs, fund support similar to the CARS program, the Comprehensive Automotive Resurgence Strategy program, which is providing subsidies to the auto industry, grants and vouchers, power subsidies, and others. And okay, so let me now move on to the second one. The second proposed measure is to allocate more budget to accelerate our digital transformation. This digital transformation is really important because this is what's going to lead us to more innovation and application of new technologies needed to help us address socioeconomic, environment, and health problems. And right now, we also launched the Artificial Intelligence Roadmap, the goal of which is to uplift the lives of the Filipino people, our industries, and the economy. And the goal is to make the Philippines an artificial intelligence center of excellence. The main recommendation of the roadmap is for us to establish a center for artificial intelligence research, which is important in order to help us accelerate innovation as well as the digitalization of our micro, small, and medium enterprises. We are also proposing the establishment of an Industry 4.0 pilot factory. This would serve as a platform for a collaborative learning environment that would teach and demonstrate Industry 4.0, like robots, automation, Internet of Things, smart factory, the applications of all these new technologies. It would also serve as a platform that would enable more R&D, prototyping activities to take place in the pilot factory. And this would be helpful for our MSMEs, for the universities and researchers to make this as a co-maker and a co-working space. So I would skip some of the slides given I might run out of time. Okay, just to again highlight why AI. Well, the adoption of AI technology in the country, based on the estimates of EDBI and Kearney, shows that the Philippines could increase its GDP by 92 billion US dollars. That's 12% of our GDP by 2030 if we're able to adopt these new technologies. And right now we're already seeing many startups, many tech startups that are using AI as a core technology in their business model. So let me skip that one. And again, this one is another program to support the digitalization of our manufacturing companies. It's called the Smart Industry Readiness Index, or SIRI, which is really going to help in terms of identifying the level of technology maturity of our companies, and use the results of the assessment as inputs to the formulation of their digitalization roadmaps. And we've already piloted this in several companies. Some of them are, some of the names of the companies are shown on the slide: DNL, EMS, Analog, and 7 others. And some of the challenges, however, are illustrated in this particular slide. Many of our manufacturing companies still have very low technology utilization. Mostly, it's the micro, small, and medium enterprises that have very low technology utilization, as you can see on the slide. And then also, these are based on our own surveys together with researchers. And for cacao and coffee, the situation is, I think, much worse. If you see the blue shaded portion, that means this is the proportion of the farmers and MSMEs that are still using manual processes. So for farmers, it's over 90%. And for our MSMEs in the cacao industry, utilizing manual processes in their manufacturing, about 40%. And the same situation in the coffee industry. So only 4 out of 10 agri-MSMEs are utilizing mechanization technologies. And this is, I think, Industry 2.0. And only 1 out of 10 farmers are utilizing mechanization technologies. And again, just to highlight, the digital divide remains a major challenge for us. And while, of course, the Philippines has the highest percentage of the population who are social media users at 82%, and in terms of daily time spent using the internet, we're also the highest. But still, we have the lowest internet adoption in Southeast Asia, and we're also below the worldwide figure, which is 62.5%. Ours is at 68%. And close to 60%, this is based on a World Bank report, close to 60% of households have no internet access, and hence they are unable to enjoy the benefits of digitalization. And as you can see on the chart to our right, over 80% of households still rely on 3G. So this orange bar represents the 80% of the population are still utilizing 3G. So for our third proposed measure, we need to implement human resource development and industry skills framework. Of course, there are jobs to be lost as a result of automation. New jobs will emerge through the adoption of new technologies that will increase worker productivity. And for us to support the particular goal of promoting HRD, we are implementing what we call a Philippine Skills Framework. This is important in order for us to ensure the match between jobs and skills. Okay, I could elaborate maybe on this later. So on the fourth measure, we need to support the development and scale up of innovative startups and MSMEs, as well as the need for us to build more regional inclusive innovation centers all over the country. We look at startups as key drivers of economic recovery, and they could, of course, support our inclusive and sustainable growth and job creation. They could also be seen as catalyst for disruptive innovation. And I'll just highlight our major strategies here. We need to grow the number of startups in the country, increase early stage funding, and build our startup quality. Now, in terms of the regional inclusive innovation centers, these are platforms aiming to link together the different stakeholders in our innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. The spin-offs coming from the universities, the startups, MSMEs, the funders, R&D and S&T parks, accelerators, incubators. What we want really is to promote a more innovative culture through the RIICs, as well as to accelerate the commercialization of R&D investments in the country. Again, these are just some of the programs that we are implementing for our startups, really focusing in terms of providing incubation and acceleration services to our startups, along with a program which is providing equity support to our startups. It's the Startup Venture Fund program of the government. And so this is the last recommendation, leveraging on the recent FDI liberalization through the implementation or through the enactment of the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, Foreign Investment Act, and the Public Service Act. We can expand and diversify trade and investment sources, as well as upgrade our industry's global value chain participation. What we are looking at really is we are combining this FDI regulatory reforms with our inclusive innovation industrial strategy. And this we see would help us in terms of improving our competitiveness and productivity of our domestic firms, as well as strengthening their linkages with foreign affiliates and the global value chain participation. I think I'm not sure, I might have exceeded my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that very incisive and comprehensive assessment of the industry, Undersecretary Fita. That was a lot to unpack, but you made it seem effortless in terms of being able to explain it in simpler terms. So thank you for that. Now, about your talk, we do have already a multitude of questions, all the wheels and cogs of inquiries that we want to start running now. But we want to spin them maybe perhaps a bit later when we do have our open forum after our second speaker. But perhaps maybe we can entertain one or two questions just to help clarify while it's fresh in the minds of our viewers. We do have a question specifically from the Manila Times reporter, Ana Lea Gonzalez is asking, well, you mentioned that you have you have the SMART program, and then you have the SIPPs that we need to align with certain situations in terms of the programs that you want to lay out. And then we've also identified that there is an opportunity to have the technological industries, manufacturing industries, make up about 12% of GDP. So the question is basically, how would we fund these? What are the necessary sources of funding for these programs?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, in terms of share or contribution to our GDP or to our economy, manufacturing accounts for around 19-20%. So mababa po, and not 12%. In fact, agriculture is even lower than 12%. So agri is around 10%. And then the rest would be services. So manufacturing is really a significant contributor to our economy. And can you imagine what more it could contribute if we're able to implement all these programs and prepare our industries, our workforce for the future.
Yes, you mentioned MSMEs are untapped. They're
in terms
99.6%.
Yes, 99.6%. So the budget would really be crucial in terms of enabling us to implement all of these efforts, all of these programs, policies that I've presented, especially now that we're really towards the implementation of our digital transformation plans. And it's not, by the way, it's not only the DTI that is pursuing this direction. We are working together with other government agencies such as the Department of Science and Technology, considering as well that our industrial policy is really focusing towards making science, technology, and innovation as our driver. We cannot, it's really very important for us to adopt these strategies, because this is, I think, this is our only chance to revitalize as well as to really for us to industrialize. It's important because other countries have overtaken us. But now that, given that we are all facing the same new types of technologies, and hence we really need to catch up. And with the CREATE, I think that could really be instrumental in terms of the incentives, in terms of the subsidy, not subsidy, but right now, fiscal support through income tax holidays that could be provided to our manufacturing industries. But at the same time, we need to implement more targeted programs, especially if you're talking about a new industry such as the electric vehicle. This is a very new industry, and you cannot expect people to just buy EVs instantly. And hence, in other countries, they've been providing subsidies. And that's the path that we are also going to take. It's support not only for the manufacturers, but primarily also to our consumers, to the drivers. That's why we're focusing this program in terms of supporting drivers of public utility vehicles. So in some of the programs, they've already received initial funding, but we hope that the funding would be sustained, because that's really going to be the key in order for us to be able to sustainably implement our digital transformation plans.
Yeah, this is all very hopeful, actually, in terms of and it helps reflect the growth that was mentioned or that was projected that at 10%. But what I did find interesting is that you highlighted certain industries like bamboo, paper products, chemical products, and pharmaceuticals that have even exceeded the 10% growth projections. And in terms of that being hopeful, I think what I seem to notice, like in terms of in parallel to other industries, you have what they call, like for instance, in the tourism industry, you have this explosion or this boost in the industry's growth that they termed as revenge tourism. Mm-hmm. And also in terms of consumer spending, there's also an apparent consumer revenge spending for consumers. So would you say also that the way the manufacturing sector has apparently been performing even better than pre-pandemic levels, that this could be a form of revenge manufacturing?
Yes, we want that to happen. Revenge manufacturing. I haven't used that word, but definitely we want a revenge manufacturing to happen. And I think with the support of our industries, the private sector,
yes,
as well,
the private sector.
And the government, all the government agencies working together to support all of these industries. But by the way, it's not only manufacturing, but growth in tourism, for example, growth in services or in agriculture could spill over the manufacturing industry. There are so many interlinkages among our economic activities. And that's why we also highlighted the need for us to integrate our production system in order for us to really be able to serve the needs of other industries. That way, while one industry is growing or booming, manufacturing could also benefit, and vice versa. So that's why what we want is a dynamic, a more dynamic industry ecosystem. That's what we really want.
So let's explore the other part of the manufacturing ecosystem, and allow me to introduce our second speaker, who will be representing the private sector. He's a representative in terms of the Industry Development Council and the National Competitive Council. And he is the private sector representative also to the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council. He is also one of only 3 representatives to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Business Advisory Council. And he's the president of Integrated Computer Systems of Paramount Vinyl Products and Interpolymer Corporation. And he is chairman of the Philippine Exporters Confederation, a board member of Philippine Business for Education, and the director of Cardinal Santos Hospital Foundation. And to top it all off, he is a member of the Rotary Club of Makati, doing a lot of good work for our communities. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you George Barcelon, PCCI President. The screen is now all yours, Mr. Barcelon.
Thank you very much, Dafford, for that very generous introduction. And thank you for Manila Times for inviting me to be one of the guest speakers. And good morning to Fita, whom I have met in many forums. And good morning to the televiewers. Today, governments and businesses are facing a world that has been radically changed by COVID-19. Our experiences with the pandemic has forced us to evaluate how we should respond to business. COVID-19 is just the beginning. We need to be prepared for possible risk that may happen again in the future. We now realize that resilience in is the key to business survival. The shift to remote working, the automation of business operations and processes, the diversification of supply chains from a geographic perspective to reduce supply side risk, and the flexibility to adapt to customers' experience were the appropriate responses needed to remain in business. At the height of the pandemic, we saw companies repurposing their business lines and turning to digital solutions. Hotels and resorts reconfigured their physical space for health-related activities or temporary housing for those that needed to work in the office or factory. Wine distilleries turned alcohol, sanitizers, and disinfectants. Electronics manufacturers repurposed their facilities to produce PPEs. Garments manufacturers shifted to making PPEs and surgical masks. Travel agencies used their logistics connections to connect people to what they need. Government converted gymnasium and public schools for healthcare and other related uses. The crisis uncovered opportunities. For companies that were agile enough, repurposing became a tool for survival, helping keep production and services line running even amid lower demand. Through flexibility and innovativeness, companies were able to meet the challenges and better manage the risk. And some have evolved as stronger business enterprises ready to compete in a post-pandemic world. We can say we are in the post-COVID recovery phase. And even as economies have reopened, we are rightly concerned about how we are still affected by changes in the business environment. We face uncertain set of risks, a new breakout of COVID, and other diseases. Note the vigilance raised over monkeypox, the Russia-Ukraine war, climate change issues, and the lack in fast tracking our phase of digitalization. It's apparent under COVID-19, our shortcomings in terms of infrastructure and human skills in digital technology became our handicap, and we do need a lot of catching up. While we have made great strides in the growth of our GDP pre and post-COVID, our economy continues to be heavily reliant on external factors, particularly remittances, that is driving our consumption economy. Heavy borrowing to fuel our growth and our healthcare needs, and the development and imported raw materials inputs for domestic manufacturing also bear burden on our foreign debt. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed these weaknesses of our economy. Border lockdowns, port congestions, a phenomenon that is happening worldwide, and economic restrictions on goods and services severely impacted economic growth and efforts of poverty reduction. This was further exacerbated by sharp slowdown in exports, tourism, and remittances. However, all is not lost. As the country begins the recovery, generating new investments and supporting the expansions of existing industries, building resilience, promoting inclusive growth, and ensuring sustainable developments remain to be the long-term goal. And enabling industries to adapt quickly to change and manage continuity, and help them to recover and emerge stronger. The readiness in retooling the economy will be crucial to achieve a sustainable growth. On the part of business, topping boardroom agendas since COVID-19 are digital infrastructure, workforce competency, and supply chain diversification as business operations face possibilities of repurposing and reconfiguration to continue securing growth. Upskilling and reskilling of the workers to promote competency is especially crucial as companies transition to digital operations and automations. Equipping young people with higher value skills, specifically on digital literacy, or being familiar with a variety of technologies, enhancing their problem-solving, communication, cognitive skills. Imbuing on our youth a sense of entrepreneurship. This will come in handy, especially for a country which is in a demographic sweet spot in a fast-rising region. By now, all enterprises, especially the smaller ones, have understood that the traditional business models needs investment in technology and research. Technology must be embraced in whatever manner possible. Because of COVID-19, businesses have realized that their operations must be more virtual and to do things smarter and more efficient. Anecdotal tales of game time, pivots moving workers to remote platforms, rethinking and remaking supply chains, shifting manufacturing to produce high-demand PPEs, reconfiguring fiscal spaces aren't just near-term business distortion. Adaptability is now a mandatory business competency as an accelerated pace of change becomes normal. For a country which is a nascent stage of development and where we have the demographic sweet spot, the future holds high promise. As I've earlier mentioned, we have the young growing ICT proficient and skilled workers. Our workforce is among the most social media savvy in the world. We can leverage on this to our advantage by enabling them to digital tools, systems, and processes. At PCCI, we continue our partnership with Huawei to expose our members with regard to artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and mobile apps development. We have a partnership with the Development Academy of the Philippines for the provision of scholarship to our members on short courses in data science and analytics to enable them to translate large data into informed business decisions. Excuse me. Excuse me. We are also pushing for greater involvement in the industry and curriculum development to ensure that the skill of our graduates meets the industry needs and demand. The ASEAN investment report says post-pandemic investment in the digital economy and technology-related infrastructure will be key drivers to FDIs and consequently economic growth.
You okay, Mr. Barcelona? Yes, it's good if you can perhaps drink a little bit of some more water. It would be interesting to ask a few questions later about how we can generate more FDIs for the coming years.
Fair enough.
We can see here from the chart that the Philippines really does lag behind. Although, surprisingly, there are also some players that you would expect to be having a larger percentage or a larger representation here in the value of the internet economy. So I think maybe Mr. Barcelona can help explain the graph later on how Indonesia is the one that's leading the pack, whereas countries like Singapore and Malaysia have a similar configuration as that of the Philippines. So, but at least what we can see here is that Thailand and Vietnam do reflect the perceptions of how their respective economies have, at least from the pre-pandemic perspective, been performing. So we wonder how they managed to get this kind of the value that they derived from the internet economy. Welcome back, Mr. Barcelona.
Yes, sorry for that.
We hope you're okay.
Yeah, something got choked.
I was just kind of discussing with our viewers how it's surprising that Singapore and Malaysia seem to have a similar situation as the Philippines, when one would imagine that they would have a greater similarity with that of Indonesia.
Well, actually, we are behind the curve compared to the other ASEAN countries.
Mm-hmm.
At least we're trying to improve our internet infrastructure. I'm having a difficulty talking.
Yes.
I would just sum it up and say that but with the new government, I think the pronouncement that has been made are in the right directions in the agriculture, in manufacturing. But the important thing is we have to fast track, nationwide internet, maximize on the use of digitalization. But first and foremost is that we have to be able to project our country, that we are serious in the ease of doing business, the rule of law. I think that's very important.
Yes,
You know
absolutely.
why companies are all investing in Vietnam is because the perception they get, and not only the perception actually, it's what they've experienced in Vietnam and in other countries. So with not that we're not attracting FDI, but we're not getting as much as what the other countries are getting. So this, to sum up, you know, all that has been said between me and FITA, it's with the new government, must have a focus approach to some of the very, very basic areas that needs to be addressed. Education, rule of law, and ease of doing business. That's the only way for us to really attract foreign investments and for us really to move forward. I'll end my talk here and I'll entertain any questions. I just
Okay,
need
sure.
to drink some water. Okay, thank you very
Yes.
much.
Please do. We'll get back to you after, in a short while. If I may ask, Undersecretary Fita, I would want to be able to continue or segue into parts of what you mentioned earlier, because Mr. Barcelon mentioned about the need to be able to develop our artificial intelligence capabilities and other technological advancements applied onto our manufacturing industries, which perfectly dovetails with what you mentioned earlier. I do wonder though, perhaps you could give us a clear picture, timelines in terms of the AI center that you mentioned and the technological, shall we say, they're like the development garages or our development centers for other forms of technological applications for the sector.
Yeah, for the AI R&D center, this is the model or the approach that we're looking at really is for a public, it's going to be a public-private partnership. And we've already discussed quite a lot with many of the conglomerates, Filipino conglomerates in the country, except that the talks were temporarily halted during the elections, but we committed to resume the discussions immediately after the elections. So there are many other companies, multinationals actually, tech companies who are interested to participate in building the center, the AI R&D center. Vietnam, by the way, already has one. It's being funded by the government and it has partnered with a university in Vietnam. And so in our case, really, it's going to be a partnership to be led by the private sector, government, which government is going to support, along with the universities. The academe would also be an important part of this AI center. And of course, we want to build it as soon as possible. There
Can you share
are
with us
already
any
recommendations. Yeah.
Hopeful timelines, like say, this would be of interest, especially for our current professionals.
We want to build
for job generation in the future.
we want to build it this year, actually, and for it to be operational, maybe beginning of next year. But we like what I've said, we have already received some pledges. There are companies that are interested to offer a particular building, location, where to put the center. But right now we're just raising. We need to raise the funds to buy the powerful supercomputers, as well as to fund the salaries, of course, of the scientists and other researchers who would be working in the center. So we're hoping this year up to next year for its initial operation. And then for the other activities that I've mentioned, for the pilot factory, the feasibility study of the Industry 4.0 pilot factory is actually being funded by the DTI, and the work is being carried out by Siemens. They're about to finish. Actually, the report is going to be presented to us later this afternoon. And based on the initial findings, the results are really positive, and we're hoping to be able to, again, raise the funds that would be needed for us to procure the equipment, some robots, some machines, and computers in order for us to support particularly the MSMEs in terms of explaining to them, allowing them to enjoy and experience what these new technologies could mean to their businesses. Because by themselves, they won't be able to invest this. So the idea is really to put this up as a shared services facility, but at the same time, the large companies could also make use of the facility along with university researchers as a place where they can do their prototyping, the validation of their projects, and for the startups to make it as their co-working, co-maker space. So hopefully next year as well, because this year we're still completing the feasibility study. And then, of course, the plans would have to be formulated. So, and then the construction. So hopefully next year, later next year, hopefully we'll be able to put up the country's first Industry 4.0 pilot factory. We have a location already, and there are also companies who are interested to house or to provide the land. There's still a lot of discussions going on. You see, a lot of these really are in partnership with the private sector.
Are you at liberty to disclose the location at this stage or not yet?
Yes. It's based on the initial work that the Siemens team has carried out. The best place would really be in the Calabarzon area, because that's the center of our manufacturing industry. So it's in the Laguna, Batangas area. The company that is interested to house it is located as well in that vicinity, Batangas, Laguna area, where most of our manufacturers in the electronics and automotive sector are located.
I think our Calabarzon viewers are happy about that. Yes, Mr. Barcelon,
it's good that we're entering this AI, but AI is such a motherhood statement. AI, it applies to the different sector in a different way. One of the sector that is really maybe impacted is the BPOs. Okay? Those voice-related services down the line, applying AI could eliminate jobs. We know very well that with Siri, your Apple, you can talk to them and they can respond to it.
That's
And
right.
that is very true on the BPO. On the manufacturing side, it's more than it's not as simple as what we think it would be. The company that uses AI robotics are sophisticated plants that do either automotive or machine making, wherein all the robotics are synchronized. Basically, it's synchronized, and it's basically run under algorithm mathematics. You don't have a brain there. When you say artificial intelligence, it's people who knows math and who converts those motions into algorithm and apply it. And I can see the visibility on the ground. The small and medium sizes, I would not think that the impact would be immediate. Every year, we have about 700,000 new entry to the job. Mind you, 700,000. The absorptive capacity of industry is just 1/3. a lot of people has to go abroad to look for jobs. Now, we are embarking into this and we have to do it fast because the other countries, I've been attending the ASEAN Business Advisory Council for the last so many years, and I can see they're not standing still. Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, they're not standing still. They already have pulled ahead. The reason why is because their ICT has been more liberalized than we are. For the longest year, we have only 2 providers. And not only that, there are many areas that are underserved. And our cost of subscription is very high. So these are very fundamental issues that must be addressed. I've talked to the incoming, the new DICT secretary. And he said that, he shared with me that we need to have at least 3 more players so that there will be more competition. Otherwise, with our rate is double the subscription rate of other countries. So for the ICT or access to broadband, for you to reach a broad base, it can only be about 3% of a person's annual monthly income. In other words, if somebody earns 25,000 a month, he can only afford maybe 500 to 600 a month for that. But all the subscription here, we have about 2005. So very few people, only the middle class can afford it. Even the businesses, a lot of them cannot afford that much. So this is the infrastructure that's needed. And I would like to have from the government point of view, is really look at the very fundamental on what can create more jobs. Okay, I don't mind going to the AI type of things, but if it creates only a few thousands, you're looking at even the K-12 graduates. Many of them are looking for jobs. So we have to balance our resources, where we put it. It's nice to talk about AI. I mean, like PCCI, we expose our people to AI also. But they ask us, in our operations, if we're talking about AI, we have to use robotics. But our operations does not have the scale to use robotics. So again, it's a consolidation. And the shared facilities on AI, well, maybe some, but generally speaking, each industry has their peculiar needs. A shoemaking factory, the AI is completely different from a toy making factory. Okay. An appliance making factory is completely different from, let's say, a textile factory. So all of this requires a certain discipline. And this is where we're lacking also in the skill sets. We don't have any, we have very few math majors. You talk about AI, as I said earlier, it's about algorithm. People look at what's being done, time and motion, okay, come up with the algorithm. That's why I said earlier, the fastest would be the BPOs, because you have already something very similar. But it's better for us to move into this, hopefully as quickly as possible. But the government must be balanced in their view that what they're going to pour resources in, the bottom line is to be able to create more jobs. Okay. That's my take on this issue. Thank you.
George, you mentioned key areas that the next administration should focus on. Our Manila Times reporter, Ana Lea Gonzalez, is asking you, what policy reforms should be implemented to improve the education sector, the upskilling of workers, and ease of doing business?
Well, let me tackle the ease of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
After election, you have newly elected officials, especially at the local government level. And it's always been the same case every time. When you have new elected officials, they tend to see, or they tend to look at it and always say, I can do things better. I will implement new compliances. Okay? And not realizing that all of this is really added bureaucracy. We now have ARTA, anti-red tapes agency, and they've been doing a good job. But I wish that there could be a warrant coming from the top, that for every new CO or memo or compliance, so every new ruling to be put in, they have to take out two. They have to take out two of this compliance requirement. Because otherwise, especially for these small companies, they have tons of paperwork to do. The compliance is just too much. So that is one area that the ease of doing business is important. And of course, digitalization is just as important. If you lessen the face-to-face transaction, the better it is. Now, on the education side, it's now being, the new secretary would be Vice President Sara Inday. And again, I think they should leverage on the digital platform. Okay. We have to learn from other English-speaking countries. Singapore is English-speaking, Malaysia is English-speaking, and mind you, India is English-speaking. The digital education, you need two things. You need the infrastructure. You need the broadband, accessible and affordable. But secondly, you need the content. The content is even more important. Okay? And I hope that the Department of Education reach out to countries that have been able to get success in their e-learning, okay? So that we can use this to our far-flung area. You know, the last 2 years is a total loss for our youth. We're in the quarantine and everything, and I really pity them, because I have I have my caddies, golf caddies. They buy a broadband card for their children to study with their cell phone. Can you imagine? What can you learn through a cell phone? So all of this talks about broadband for the last 6 years. It's really, in a way, it's really depressing when you see what they have to go through. So it's about time that we have a new administration, that they go full blast on this and make it affordable to them. And I told the incoming secretary of the ICT, I said, this administration owe this to 31.5 million votes who got them in position. The 31.5 million votes. I said, you owe it to them to make this available. Yes, I said, to make this available for them. And I hope they do in the shortest possible time, because that's the only way we can leverage. Okay, we as you said, we have the youth. Filipinos are no less are not in any way inferior to others. We're just as smart or even smarter. Filipinos are all over the world. You know, why we are at this state, it's really pitiful. When I go out representing the country in the ASEAN back, I see what they're talking about. I see what they're doing. Okay? And I felt that we really need to get together. The government must reach out to the private sectors, especially the headwind we're facing. You know, inflation, devaluation, all of these are quite big tasks ahead. But we have, in a way, we're lucky because we have the reliable remittances that we're getting, about $33 billion. And that's really keeping our economy afloat. That's why every time there's a lockdown, our GDP would drop. Okay, Not because people don't go out and don't spend, but the money is there. The minute we relax the quarantine, people go out and spend, and you can imagine. You can see immediately the GDP per quarter will jump up to about 8% because the demand is there, the money is there. Okay? But now with this exchange rate, well, it negates itself out. You get more for your dollar, but you pay more. Look at our gasoline. Our gasoline now is 50% more than about 3 months ago.
Mhm.
You know, and I expect by July the commuter's fare would be going up.
Maybe we can address how the government can reach out to the private sector. Particularly, maybe we can focus on EVs, which is a way in which we can catch up with our ASEAN neighbors. Undersecretary, could you elaborate a bit on our timelines for electric vehicles? And our added follow-up question from our reporter, Ana Lea Gonzalez, is that will there be changes to the proposed 83 billion fiscal support of EVs? And the timeline for the submission of the EV incentive strategy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually, the implementing rules and regulations of the law, which is the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act, they're still currently being formulated. So it's just that we've been working on this for quite some time now, especially as we're also very actively participating in the discussions, both at the House and the Senate. And hence, we already started working on the EV incentive scheme. In terms of the timeline, like what I've said, it still has to go through certain processes. I think we have to submit it to the proposed program to the FIRB, the Fiscal Incentive Revenue Board, for approval, and then of course another maybe an executive order to be signed by the president to enable us to have some funds and implement the EVIS. So maybe next year as well, we're hoping to be able to implement the EVIS. And then there, was there a second part to the question?
Yes, I understand there's supposed to be an 83 billion peso fiscal support. Are there any changes to that? Has that been reduced, or has there been additional support allocated for that?
Right now, we're going to recalibrate and refine our calculations and our estimations. The figure 83 billion was based on pre-pandemic numbers, and so yeah. And so right now we're doing some refinements in terms of the assumptions being used in the model that we are using. So there would still be some changes, definitely, and we're hoping that the IRR would be completed soon. In any case, I think we're only given a certain number of months to complete it. So, yeah.
Mr. Barcelona, yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to ask. Yes, it's interesting that the government is embarking on this EV. I just want to know if you can share with us, Fita, how many jobs would this create? 83 billion pesos is a lot of money. China is about 100 companies in EV. And I think about 80% are not making good. So I asked, how many jobs can we create in that EV?
Yeah, we're hoping, 100,000. That's a very conservative assumption.
The EV side of it, the crucial side of it is the battery.
Yeah.
We don't have that technology. The battery itself, it's the I've looked into that, and in the world there are only Tesla and Panasonic who are export, and a few companies in China on the battery side. The other component are mechanical, and we haven't had a car factory for the longest time. So I don't know. That's why I said for the government, they have to set their sight in a way that the resources are put in when there are more jobs to be created. Okay,
Yeah.
Perhaps, George,
I've
that's an
actually seen a factory
opportunity for you have angel investors perhaps that could come in and be able to. We can have perhaps our own industry of EV manufacturing in the Philippines. Is that perhaps something we can bring to the table? Is there a possibility for local manufacturing of EV components?
Yes, I think there's a possibility when the U.S. Deputy Secretary of the State Department was here, Miss Wendy Sherman, and that was the point I brought up. I said, we would welcome Philippine Americans to really put in more investment in the country, like computers. The reason why I brought up computers, I have a company in the IT business.
Yes, yes.
We supply many of the BPOs. We're one of the biggest supplier. All the brands we carry are American brands: HP, Dell, IBM.
If I may ask, I'm just curious about the state of the wafer chips supply chain. Has that been alleviated? Has there been an uptick in terms of supply, given the continuous demand and the suspension of it during the lockdowns?
Well, there is still a shortage. There is still a shortage on the chip side, and as I was saying, I said we have to buy from Singapore and Malaysia. I said, why doesn't the U.S. company invest in the Philippines, where we are promoting your products? And this is something that for this administration to really be focused on, who we should bring in. There's a advantage for us as manufacturer and also as consumer. Okay? And as what our entry into EV, there are American firms that are also into this. General Motors, as a matter of fact, has their EV in China, and if we can attract them to come over here and put a setup that is big, but to do it alone, I find it very challenging.
Yeah, sir, if I may as well, if I may also cite that we have the minerals, we have cobalt, we have nickel in the country, which are important components of the battery. And we're also working together with the academe in terms of conducting a feasibility study as to whether we have the sufficient minerals here, and that how do we acquire the technology in order for us to manufacture the battery as well. We're looking actually at the entire supply and value chain. It's not only the assembly that we're looking at in terms of promoting the EV industry, but from the battery upwards, no. So the entire value chain. And there are also discussions with U.S. based EV companies for them to come to the Philippines. And of course, we're leveraging on the presence of minerals here in the country, which is
Undersecretary
what
Fita.
Indonesia is doing. Yeah.
Yes, and we have one of our viewers who chimed in and agrees with your statement about the raw materials for batteries, particularly about cobalt, and that Kenneth Cos says that when talking about manufacturing EVs, the starting point perhaps could be coming up with a battery factory, like what Tesla did in Indonesia. How feasible is that for our Philippine setting?
Yeah, that's what, like what I've said, we're working with university researchers to help us in conducting the feasibility study for the manufacturing of e-batteries here in the Philippines.
That's great.
Yeah, and if I may, can I segue to AI and digitalization?
There were
Perhaps
parts of your talk that you had to breeze through earlier. If you want to round it off,
Yes. No, I would just want, I think in the presentation, I was not able to provide really concrete examples. In manufacturing, we have mostly in the electronics and semiconductor sector, we have one company as an example. I could probably cite Ionics, which really invested, and this happened prior to the pandemic. So they now have a smart factory. And hence, during the pandemic, despite the lockdown, they were able to operate because the workers need not go to the factory, but through their laptops and computers at home, they're able to control the operations happening in the company. And had it not been for their smart factory, the officers were telling us that COVID, the pandemic, and the recession would really have a much worse impact in terms of their profitability and in their operations. And let me also mention that as they adopted smart manufacturing, of course, there were some workers that were dismissed, but at the same time, they also employed new workers with new skills. And if you compare the number of workers that were dismissed versus those that were employed, the net impact is still positive, meaning the net job creation was greater or positive, meaning new workers employed would be higher than those that were laid off. And another maybe another instance or another case would be in the BPO sector. Well, in the roadmap, the focus really one of the important sectors we're focusing on is the BPO sector, given that this is one strength of the Philippines, and the goal really is for us to have an AI enabled BPO sector. And even prior to the pandemic, some of the companies, some of the BPO firms were already moving towards these new technologies. They were already utilizing robotic process automation. They've already invested in that. And of course, the need really is for them to upskill, reskill the workers, because this would be needed as they employ or this new technology. So that's one important assistance that they've been requesting, not only from DTI, from DICT, but as well as from TESDA. So we're all working together in order to support this transition towards new technologies of our BPO industry. Because if they won't adopt this new technology, they would really lose their clients, because abroad they would really require you to utilize these new technologies. And since our competitors are also doing the same, they are also adopting new technologies, the battle now is in terms of the new types of services that you could provide, and hence the need for them to really work towards more innovation, employing or introducing new services that would differentiate the Philippines from our competitors abroad.
Mr. Barcelon, in terms of our workforce that you mentioned earlier, there's a large percentage that's either unemployed or underemployed. To what subsectors or specific fields of upskilling or additional knowledge would PCCI recommend our workers, our laborers, our employable Filipinos focus their attention? Where would you suggest that they go to and focus in terms of
that one sector is that we totally agree with our presumptive President BBM when he took over at the helm of Department of Agriculture.
Mhm.
And I think that's one area that we have to really beef up. First, for food security, also import substitute, but really create more jobs. Our rural poor is really in the rural areas. And we should be able to attract the young people to be interested in agriculture.
Yes, it seems like less people want to be farmers, right? But now it can be interesting with the infusion
it
of
can be
technology
interesting because
applications.
it's high tech. We've talked to Israel ambassador and other countries to work in the high tech area. But there are companies here like the tobacco leaf planters in Isabel. They're really using high tech. They're targeted irrigation and everything. But we should really bring this knowledge, to go up the value chain of our agricultural product. There are certain basic commodities that is hard to compete, like rice, for example. Depends. The rice depends on rainfall. We don't have the Mekong River compared to Thailand and Vietnam. That's why the cost of production is very low. But we can produce other crops that we can either import substitute or we can export. The export of Thailand is double their import. Tayo nun baliktad. Ang import natin is twice our export. So, but what's important really is for us to go. This is a sector that can really has an upside to it. As what Fita just mentioned, our agri is like 10%. For a country of 110 million, the agri must be at least, I would think, closer to about 15%, 18%. We have the budget for agriculture with a population 110 million. Thailand has population of 70 million. Their budget for agri is double that of the Philippines. So that's why what I'm saying is we have limited resources, but we have to put our resources where we can see the most benefit in creating jobs. Okay? And I believe agri is one. It's very important because there's a long-term growth to it. So agri is one, and other services. Definitely, I'm for what was being said on the artificial intelligence, using it for radiologists. Nowadays, I mean, people look at, they claim that artificial intelligence can detect cancer better than a seasoned doctor reading the scan. So, those are things that as we go along, hopefully that Philippines would be into that area. The other area that I think the government should really look into is biotechnology, because that's again it's a growing area, and biotechnology affects everything from food, from pharmaceutical, and so forth. So those are, but the service sector is growing, but the manufacturing is that we need to really make ourselves attractive, so that we'd like to really get some of these foreign investments coming to the Philippines.
I think while our discussion is heating up, actually our time is up, and we need to start winding things down for our forum. But perhaps I can ask you, George, if you could. You did mention you did mention that there's the need to make foreign direct investment more attractive here in the Philippines. So perhaps you can give your final recommendations and insights on how we can achieve this, and in that way we can get the ball rolling in terms of the manufacturing industry boom.
Earlier, as Fita mentioned, that we have our SIPP. Okay, and I suggested to the incoming Secretary of DTI, Mr. Fred Pascual, I mentioned that you got to have a counterpart on the skill training for the SIPP. In other words, those sectors that you want to attract, you have in tandem what are the skill sets needed. And they can invest, they can come in and do the training, incentivize their training, so that when they put in their investment, they know they have the skills that can run their operation. I think that's very basic. And once this starts snowballing, people will look at the Philippines and say, we have a good thing going. We not only attract certain sectors, but we also have planned on the skills training so that our investment can has the shortest time of from investment of machineries to being productive. And then we got to score some good points in the eyes of the world that we can attract major foreign direct investments. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Fita, how about you? Your final assessment?
With the legislation of new laws such as the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, amendments to the Foreign Investment Act, and very important is the Public Service Act, which would liberalize our telecommunications sector, which is, by the way, really crucial in order for us to help address the digital divide as well as to stimulate more competition in the economy. We think that these reforms, including the EVIDA, the EV Industry Development Act, now that we have a framework, more countries are getting interested really in terms of potential investments here in the country. So with all of these new legislations, we really think that we would be in a better position to attract more investments immediately after the signing, actually, of the PSA. Space Link already had contacted the various departments in the country. So you could see the immediate response of the outside world in terms of the legislations that the services liberalization that we are embarking on. And that's really going to improve the FDI flows to the country, to areas that we really are badly in need of further development. And then lastly, of course, I think we also need to emphasize for us to provide the support, especially to micro, small, and medium enterprises in their digital transformation. Based on our work, what we've seen is that it's really mostly the large, export-oriented companies with foreign direct equity, those that are located in urban areas, are really those that are utilizing higher levels of technologies, but not the MSMEs. And this is one important sector the government really needs to support in order for us to ensure that the benefits arising from digitalization would really benefit everyone and that no one is left behind.
Peter and George, it's been a privilege having our discussion. We hope we can have another turn with you on the Manila Times Online Business Forum. Thank you, Undersecretary Aldaba.
Anyway, just a note, we hardly touch on power, and that's very basic.
Yes,
but I presume that the government is looking at this, planning, reliable, again, affordable power throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, with us today are George Barcelon, the PCCI President, and Dr. Rafaelita Aldaba, the DTI Undersecretary for Competitiveness and Innovation. And well, that's a wrap. I'm the Fort Villasaran, and unfortunately, our business editor, Conrad Carino, has been having technical difficulties, but I'm sure you would want to thank our viewers also, and our sponsors for today, Distilleria Limtuaco and Company, for supporting our forum. We hope we got all the gears in your head turning on the Manila Times Online Business Forum titled Repurposing Industry for Retooling the Economy. We hope you do have a more industrious 2022. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sign up for a year and pay less than 71 pesos per month. Visit tmt.ph/premium to get your free 30 days of the Manila Times Premium.
Destilería Limtuaco and Company Incorporated, the oldest distillery in the Philippines. Established in 1852, the company, through 5 generations of master blenders and distillers, has amassed a wide range of distilled spirits and alcoholic beverages, expertly produced with the highest degree of manufacturing excellence. It was in the Philippines' capital city of Manila that Chinese immigrant Lim Tuaco established Destilería Limtuaco during the Spanish colonial period. He brought with him a family secret recipe for a Chinese medicinal wine known to restore vigor and vitality. The product, named Shok Hok Tong, would eventually become a generic name for all Chinese herbal tonics sold commercially. To this day, the product is still made with the same recipe and marketed under other brand names. In 1926, Lim Tuaco's nephew, Lim Chai Seng, took over the helm of the company. Much-needed capital was pumped into distillery, and production shifted from the homebrewed concoction to other Western-type liquors. In 1937, James Limpe, a son of Lim Chai Seng, was placed at the helm of the company. James, a professional manager, introduced modern management into the business and more Western spirits to the Philippines through a distribution partnership with Shenley Distillers Company. James would later develop his own labels with his blending expertise. In 1958, James relinquished his position of Chief Executive Officer to Julius, his eldest son. As he grew in the business, Julius Limpe learned the chemistry of liquor manufacturing and became, like his father, a master blender. Julius developed and patented formulas and aging processes that are today part of the corporation's closely guarded secrets. It was during his time that Destilería Limtuaco and Company Incorporated was established as a leader in the local liquor industry, owing largely to the success of his brainchild, White Castle Whiskey, the #1 whiskey in the Philippines. Julius Limpe says to have dreamt about a red bikini-clad woman atop a white horse galloping along a shoreline, where a white castle was visible in the periphery. Julius turned this dream into an iconic ad campaign for White Castle Whiskey in 1969. He was also credited for commercializing many other brands and innovative drinks during his time. Today, the 5th generation, headed by Olivia Limpe Au, is steering the company into the challenges of the 21st century. Using the wisdom gained from past generations, she is now focused on bringing the company to the world with the company's line of Philippine craft spirits, developed with the finest raw materials the Philippines has to offer, ethically sourced from local farmers, and developed with the accuracy and precision of the most up-to-date fermentation and distillation techniques with the help of our international technical consultants. During her time, the company has been re-engineered into a streamlined organization. The distillery has over 40 different products, which include local blends and foreign brands manufactured locally under license. It has 3 bottling, processing, and aging plants, as well as warehouses in and outside Metro Manila, which constitute the largest stock of aging spirits and oak barrels in the Philippine liquor industry. One of the more prolific exporters of Philippine spirits, Destilería Limtuaco products have also been sent to over 20 countries all over the world. Destilería Limtuaco has come a long way from its humble beginnings to become the quality leader in the Philippine liquor industry, where innovation, quality, and integrity is key to their success and longevity.